What up, y'all? This is Julian Baudouin, the Executive Director of the Hub South Dakota. Welcome to another episode of Roots and Revenue. Today we have a special guest with us, Mr. Vaney Hariri, my friend, my brother. Happy to call him my brother first before anything else. We've done tons and tons of work in this community, and our families are closely tied together. More than just being brothers. This man has impacted my life as an individual in so many ways, serving as a mentor to me, an advisor to me, sometimes a communications director to me, and also calling me on some things that maybe I should or should not be doing in the community as well. So, without further ado, I want to give him an opportunity to introduce himself. Mr. Vaney Hariri, how are you, sir?
Yes, sir. I'm beautiful.
Yeah. So tell us, who is Vaney?
Yeah. Well, the roles I play: Vaney Hariri, co-founder of Think 3D, specialized in leadership development, organizational culture. Usually, I accompany that by saying "man about town," because I do a lot of different things. But for me, it's about engaging in my community. It's about determining a higher quality of life, having a great experience. Those are the things that drive me: authenticity, and anything that impacts me, I try to impact it. So I'm a person who likes to be involved in what's going on in the world in terms of the things that have influence over how I live my life.
Yeah, that's what's up. So let's go maybe a little bit deeper. Where you from? Is your family here? What? Let's talk about the childhood a little bit.
Sure, come from Buffalo, New York. Moved here right before high school. Much of my family came. My uncle was actually out here for some military stuff. At the time, Sioux Falls was the #1 place to live. Buffalo was not, at least the environment that we were in. And so my mom was in a moment where, she wanted to create opportunity for us. We were in recruiting age.
Yeah.
And for anybody that understands that dynamic, it's funny, sometimes people be like, man, you moved here from when you was, 13, 14, you South Dakota.
And that's the point you are.
And I am, that's my home. But what a lot of people get twisted in those situations is what those ages are in that place in terms of experiences, what you see, what you are party to, what you engage. So I always say Buffalo made me, Buffalo defined me, Sioux Falls refined me. You know what I mean? So a lot of those core elements come from that situation. Because when you're at that age, you're really vulnerable. If you go to a lot of major cities like that, or metropolises, or just environments like that, you're going to find that those trajectories start to really change when people are in that 12, 13, 14, 15 years old.
Yeah.
Household. So that's a big time in people's lives. So my mother knew that, so she wanted to move us out of that particular situation. And so we came out here. For my siblings, they were here as long as they needed to be, and they kind of split. Yeah, but for me, I always appreciated how malleable the community was. And I've always been a person that wanted to have influence. So this was a great space for me to be able to grow and develop and work on the things I want to work on without being impeded, and to also be able to influence my environment.
Yeah, for sure. So demographics in Buffalo, I would imagine, is quite a bit different than the demographics here in Sioux Falls. Explain maybe particularly when you first moved here. Was that a culture shock to you? I know when I moved from Louisiana, it was most definitely a shock.
Yeah, it's not as much as you think. It's for Buffalo anymore, which I really benefited from, to be honest with you, because Buffalo is more segregated than it is non-diverse, right? Like, so you have Armenians, you have Polish folks, you have Italians, you have Black communities, but they're just a little bit more segregated, right? So like in my neighborhood, in my environment, it was pretty much all Black people.
Yep.
But I went to, a K-9 school with, thousands of kids in there, you know what I mean? Some came from different communities. I also spent time going to a Catholic school that was in the burbs. We took 2 Metro buses out there where it was 102 students, I believe. 98 of them were white. 2 of them were my brother and sister. 1 of them was me. So I had experiences in situations where it was heavily the other way. So when I moved out here, it was a culture shock because it was homogenous all the way to the edges, really.
Yeah.
For the most part. But I wasn't used to being a minority in certain situations, or I wasn't, it wasn't foreign for me to be that. So that was helpful.
Yeah.
Because again, when I went home to my neighborhood, I felt that. I know what it's like to feel like. So there's a lot of people we might grow up in environments like this, and this is why I go back to Buffalo refining, or Buffalo defined me, Sioux Falls refined me, is that a lot of people have never felt that, to be in a situation where you see yourself everywhere in any capacity.
Right.
So they don't know what that feels like.
Absolutely.
And then a lot of people don't know what it's like to be one of,
Yeah.
feel that type of.
For sure, for sure. So you talked about, maybe going to public school there and then transitioning into private school or a Catholic school. But a Catholic school, I imagine. Uh, what was your life like prior to that? Like, as far as that, maybe like, what did your mom have to do to get you to the point to understand? I'm taking this, young black kid and putting him in private school when he was your white folks.
Yeah, don't get that twisted. That was a communal thing. You know what I mean? Like, my uncles helped with that. My mom was, multi-job, single mom type thing. And not only that, but so I had my siblings, and then we also had we were a foster family. So we had multiple kids in there. So, and we don't really make that distinction. Most of my siblings are adopted. I don't really make that distinction. But we're talking sometimes 6, 7 kids in the household. In our youngest years, me and my brother and my older brother and my older sister. So there was a lot going on. My family was a family, though. You know what I mean? Like, and I think in a fairly healthy way from what I was able to observe. Obviously, there's more drama than I can appreciate that now as an adult, that there was more drama than when I put on then. But like, my family rocked with each other, and we had we were cultured in a lot of ways. We went places. We were always like the house at the edge of the hood. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was one of those situations where we went without. We dealt with legitimate poverty, not having anything, government assistance, all those other type of things. But I just never felt like we had the worst of it. I just never felt that. And so my mom, one thing she always believed in, one thing she always knew, is that she wanted us to be exposed and have access, because my uncles and things of that nature went to the military, and so went to college and things of that nature. And for our neighborhood, that was rare for a lot of places. So
For sure.
you know what I mean? So like, in our hood, we were like the Cosbys in some ways. You know what I'm saying? People went places you expect to go to Hillman or whatever. And so that wasn't foreign. It wasn't like in our family. Like, it was a real expectation, but we could see it. And my mother, I joke that she made terrible financial decisions. And we benefited from those terrible financial decisions in a lot of ways, because, we would see a late bill on the thing and that type of stuff, but we still went places and we still did things. With a lot of help from my uncles and my grandmother and other people that kind of pitched in. We were some of the only people on our block that had seen a cow or a horse or the ocean, you know what I mean, or had been to Disney World or whatever. So we always had these glimpses into it. That's not where we lived, but we got to see it every once in a while. You know what I'm saying? So we went out to the Catholic school. Again, my brother, my sister's 2 years older than me. My brother's 2 years older than her. So you're talking about from whatever range, 8, 10, 12, 10, 12, 14, whatever. We taking 2 metro buses from the inner city, Buffalo, New York, connecting ourselves out to the boonies to go to school. You know what I mean? Situation. So you actually got to see, while you're on that bus, the change in experience. You know what I'm saying? And how different it was. And so it was never lost on me how divergent these experiences could be.
Yeah. See, for me, that's really, really important, particularly with this podcast, because we want to know the root of the individual before we talk about the business side of things and the revenue you've been able to create, not just for your community, but for your family.
Yeah.
And so, folks think that they hear the story of Vaney Hariri, and Vaney went to private school, and Vaney's not from here, which, like, you don't know the struggle that Vaney's family had to overcome to be able to get to that point, just so that they can afford those types of opportunities. So I really appreciate and value that story, and I'm glad that you're vulnerable enough to tell that on camera. Vulnerability, particularly as a leader, and you're one of the premier leaders, not just in this community but across the country. Vulnerability is extremely important. Explain to me what made you, especially like, because when you grew up, you were rapping, you're a boxer, like you're this tough dude. You know what I mean? Or the perceived view of Vaney is like this tough outside. Vulnerability is a soft quality, particularly when it comes to leadership and being the best possible leader you can be. What brought out vulnerability to you?
I think it's that. I think it's changing my framework on that because I don't think it's a soft. I think it's the hardest one of them all. I think vulnerability. I think there's no greater sign of like. So I think people confuse vulnerability with weakness.
Sure.
I think
Now, being soft is not necessarily weak.
yeah.
Just
No. I'm specifically saying weakness for a reason. Not even necessarily soft, but I mean weakness for a reason. That people say vulnerability as weakness or fragility.
okay.
And because I think people can be weak, I think people can be fragile, and I think those things are dangerous, and those things make you fool.
Yep.
I think vulnerable always communicated strength to me because you had to be secure enough to be able to do that, to actually enjoy your experience. And one of the things that I just witnessed is like some of the gooniest people I've ever known in my life. Some of the most like people that I knew like this person had spine, this person had real character. They could smile. They could hold. They could hug their kids. They could kiss their girl. They could. Cause what you gonna say to them?
Yeah,
Nothing.
for sure.
You know what I mean? Like so for me, it was that quality is what stuck out to me to be able to say like, I always thought it was corny that person was over there mean mugging people when we had a birthday party or something, bro. Like what you doing? Like you emotionally stunned, you emotionally scared, and that's one of the things that just always stuck out to me. It just always stuck out to me that like. It's just no different than, the person who's doing the most woofing, the most yelling is usually one of the softer people, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because they that's their defense mechanism, you know what I mean? Like some animals have an offensive defense mechanism and some have camouflage. Some when you prey, you gotta hide. You gotta blend in to the situation so the predators can't see you. Whereas the predators, they stalk. They move quietly, thoughtfully, intelligently. They sure-footed so that they can get position on you. Once I started appreciating how different people moved, I realized that the people that I wanted to be like, the confident people, the people who really had an understanding of their environment, were the people who really could be vulnerable and appreciate themselves. Because there's two ways that you can keep people from hurting you. You can defend yourself. You can hurt them, keep them from hurting you. You can defend yourself. And you can have people not want to hurt you.
Right.
And that's where a lot
Seems like the better quality to me.
correct. And that's where a lot of my social skill came from. Part of it is, yes, wanting to be a legitimate force so that people couldn't just play with me. But the other part of it is being likable.
Yeah.
It's having people rock with me.
For sure.
And when enough people rock with you, it makes it unpopular for people not to. And so being unpopular is a huge motivation to weak-minded people.
Yeah. That's what's up. That's a lot of wisdom in that statement for sure. Because legitimately, who wants to be disliked? You know what I mean? Like, people can say, "Oh, I don't like people." Yeah, you do. You should. Like it was. He's like, what are we talking about, right?
Actually, I got a story for you. This is a prime example of what I mean. I was in DC on a business trip, and I was walking.
Which is my city, by the way, Chocolate City.
No, I love DC. And so when I'm walking in there, I have my headphones, and when I get my headphones and I get my city Diddy Bop on, when I get that in that city energy, like I love it because I'm aware, but I got a box with me. I just love that part of it. You know what I mean? And there's less use for that here, right? So I have my right. You know what I'm saying? You just look, So I got my Diddy Bop on, I'm doing my thing. And I'm walking down the street, I'm feeling good. And I see this young man, had to be like 23, 24 or something like that, walking towards me. I mean, this dude is smiling ear to ear just at life. You get to see him almost skipping. He's just feeling good. He floating like you. I actually, to the point that I took notes. I was like, man, my guy look happy.
Yeah.
And as we come upon each other, he looks at me, I look at him, and then he kind of like snaps into this rigidity. His smile go away. He straightened up, he tightened up. He started to get a little, extra with it. And then it's like, this dude was just having such a beautiful time.
Yeah.
And as soon as he saw me, and honestly, I probably had a posture to me too. Sure. But like just watching him go and just tighten up like that, like I was so thrown aback, but like by the fact that we could produce that in each other, that you was loving life, bro. Right. And you saw another brother walking past you in the street and it tightened you up. And it was almost out of reflex. You know, it was a defense mechanism. And like, that's the sad thing where like he couldn't hold on to that.
Yeah.
Because he had to really feel in danger. And the fact that he saw danger in me really caught my eye. And that's one of the things that I think sometimes, you know, people don't appreciate. There's a lot of people I know that are too cowardly to be kind. Like they want to be nice. They don't know how to be nice and not look like a sucker, which makes them a sucker.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so I was actually going to bring we kind of jumping into this a little earlier than I wanted to, but I'm glad you brought it up. You used the word danger. And a lot of the times, particularly people like us who are in positions where we're in rooms that folks are normally not in, um, we are sometimes perceived to be a threat one way or the other. Yet either it's from the folks that are in the room or from the folks that are not in the room and want to be in a position.
For sure.
And so that term threat really has been in my mind for probably the last month or two. The notion of just being a threat to someone. I have no plans to go out and hurt anybody. I have no plans to go fight anybody. Like, I'm not a physical threat to anyone. But when we talk about breaking down systematic racism, particularly again, like in the rooms that we are in, and the battles that we are battling every single day, the threat of racism is something that I think folks who are not of color see. We actually see real racism in these systems, in these people. Can you talk about like how you have, and you and I have different strategies, and we have different conversations. So it's very intimate and detailed conversations on like our differences in our approaches to things. But can you talk about your approach to leadership when breaking down systematic racism?
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, just when we talk about danger, when we talk about threat, things of that nature, I think it's important for people to think about safety, right? And what people forget sometimes is safety is a feeling, and it's less based on what does happen and more based on what could happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when you see somebody down the street or in the alley or whatever, you're not scared of what they have done to you. They ain't do nothing.
For sure.
You're scared of what they could do.
They could do the potential. Yeah.
Right. Now, what populates your mind as to what could happen could be a bunch of things. So some people, when they see me in the alley, what they worry about that could happen comes from nothing that they experience, comes from the news, comes from TV, comes from music, comes from whatever. So those images, most of which are some version of reality or emulate reality in some way, is what they base that fear off of.
Yeah.
The fear I have of that person in that alley is my cousin got stabbed by somebody that looked like this in the alley. I got shot by this. That's why even we fear each other so much. Because when you look at who hurts you, sometimes you see yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Most of the time you see yourself.
Most of the time. Most hate crime in general is intra-racial.
For sure.
It's internally. So, you know what I mean? So that's the difference, is that like we both can be perceived of fear.
Yeah.
My fear, what populates my mind, my references are real, are actual experiences that I have. Your references are references nonetheless, but they come from places that are far more superficial. And so it makes it hard for people to see the differences in that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So just in general, that's one thing I think is always important for people to understand about that, what they perceive as happening. For me, I'm utilitarian. And the way my mind works is that I care about if the thing works. I care about moving the needle. I'm not a super sentimental person, so I less care about what should or shouldn't happen, and I more care about what is or isn't happening. What I'm going to will to happen versus what that person wants to happen. I don't necessarily care what that person wants to happen. This is what I'm about to try to do, you know? And so that, I think, gives me an ability to work in environments that normally are triggering for other people, because I'm not impacted by those feelings the same way. And I want to be clear, like, that's me now.
Yeah.
That wasn't always me. And when I was young, when I came in, why this person looking at me? Can I help you? What you mean, can you help me? You think I'm stealing something, don't you? And that was based off of real references that were legitimate.
Yep.
That formed my experience.
Yep.
Over time, I try to always let new information come in. I always say to people, I'm not above it, I'm beyond it. So when somebody comes to me and they say, man, they just trying to follow us around the story, I'm not above that. I felt the same way at your stage in life or your set of experiences.
Yeah.
I'm beyond that because I've had enough experiences to know that it's less these people or those people, and it's more of this person or that person. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
And that changed the quality of my life because now I can be in relationships with people and not be suspicious of the because I'm monitoring their behaviors, not their attributes.
Yeah. So like, all right. So that's a great example. And this runs me like my first back and forth. So I'm digging this. That's a great example because, like in my mind, that would be a systematic issue. The training that person has received has told them, "Hey, this thieves look like this, thieves act like this, thieves dress like this." And so when you enter into a space and someone is following you, it's because they've been taught or trained to do that. And so my question is, instead of looking at the individual to say, "Is that person?" I actually go back and I say it's not necessarily that person, it's that person and it's that system. And so I try my best, in most cases to battle both of those things. And so like going back to my previous question, how do you maybe battle those systematic type situations?
So let me touch on that a little bit. So that is exactly what I mean. So yes, the system has something to do with it, right? How that person was trained. In some instances, the fact that person wasn't untrained, right?
Okay. Yep.
I might not have trained people that those people are thieves. Your daddy might have trained you to do that. My training said, hey, go up to the person, validate this, that, or that. But you're not just coming with my training. The stuff your daddy taught you probably gonna stick with you more than the stuff I teach.
Yep.
So yeah, that they might be doing the right training. That still don't mean that you don't come with those, discriminations or you don't come with those biases or any of those other type of things. And then sometimes from a factual perspective, some elements are true. We might look back at the tape, right? And we might see of the 20 people that stole from us in the last X amount of time, 8 of them had a shiesty on.
Sure.
You know what I mean? 9 of them had a hoodie on. So if I see somebody with a shiesty on and see somebody with a hoodie on, I'm going to watch them.
Yeah.
Because I'd be stupid if I didn't. The data is telling me that. What happens is that we have incomplete conversations about systemics, which gets people caught up. Like, for instance, the person who mugs you is probably more likely to be wearing a hoodie. The person who steals your pension is more likely to be wearing a suit.
There you go.
Either way, these are really dumb ways to establish a person's character.
Yeah.
Okay? But again, people are more worried about being mugged than they are having their pension taste on.
Yep.
Happens all the time. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
So that's why for me, when you get into those type of elements, the ripples and the factors that influence all of those things are so big, are so significant. I don't want that to become my job, trying to unwind all of that. Rather, what I try to do is I try to deal with not this name, that name, racism, sexism, not necessarily even isms, but for me, it is discrepancies. For me, it is when things aren't lining up. So I want to pull on the strand. So if I look at the thing and this becomes inconsistent, I want to pull on the strand, and where that strand leads me to is where I address. Now, sometimes that leads us to information that we don't want to see or we don't want to hear. But the question is, are you going to address it? Like, for instance, if we look at disparities, not any negative intention, not saying anybody's a villain or anybody's a victim. If we just look at disparities, and we look at disparities at education, access, resource, support, mentorship, all those other type of things. When we lead to those disparities, I'm not saying you're trying to do this to black people, white people, whoever it is. I'm saying let's follow the disparity. And when we follow the disparity, when we start to see that it leads to a consistent audience, when we start to see consistencies in these disparities, then that allows us to come to a reasonable conclusion that there's something going on here.
Yeah. But doesn't it become intentional when you don't do anything about it? Because I think we followed that thread for a long time now. Like, we see the disparities, we followed and tracked the history of where those things started to where they are now. There's been,
We have, you know what I mean?
well, I mean, listen, it's 2024. Legit, we'd be crazy to think that the government hasn't either, like, or systems again haven't put things in place.
I don't think he has though. I don't know if they have though, because I mean, if you
which is intentional, and that's
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
my point.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I think if you expect somebody to do it on their own accord, that's not likely to happen if that person is on the ups.
Sure.
right?
For sure.
So if stuff is working for me, I'm not looking for stuff that don't work.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's number one. Number two, what happens is we normally tell people what's happening to us because it's emotional for us,
Yeah.
because it's passionate, because we want people to care about us. We want people to love us. So when we tell them that we're in pain, when we tell them that they're hurting, we want them to respond. Just like when you go to your spouse or you go to your kids or you go to your loved ones, you want them to notice you enough to see that this is impacting you the way it is.
Yeah.
I'm saying that in lieu of that, and we have enough evidence that that's not enough. And I know that when I just tell you it, it makes it hard for you to believe because you don't have the experiences to really see the value of that.
For sure.
That I just put that to the side and say, okay, never mind that.
Yeah.
Let's look at this number and that number. What does this say? Okay. And then what does this one say? Now I can be in an intellectual conversation with a person about what's going on versus a feeling conversation with a person. Because in my experience, I haven't had enough, even when somebody felt what I wanted them to feel, even when somebody understood the pain or whatever that I was being caused, it still didn't cause them to act. It generally puts them in shame and if oh, so sorry. I always tell people, I don't want your anger. I don't want your anger for me, against me, or whatever. I have no use for it. So sometimes I have white friends, for instance. They're like, man, this is messed up. This is so stupid. I don't care that you think it's messed up. What are you going to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
What does it motivate you to do? Sure, it motivates you to be frustrated or it motivates you to feel bad. That doesn't do anything for me. So I'm not interested in that either. So it's not that I don't understand the value or feel all of those things. Because like I said, I felt these things very deeply for a very long period of time. And I just did not like how it made me feel or the place that it put me in. So for me, I could come in and I could talk to almost anyone. And part of my skill set is being able to keep that person in the conversation.
Yeah.
Because I could trigger that person where they go to a place and now they defended themselves. Now they're not listening to me no more. I can get to that person where they're trying to debate or make some kind of ideological point. Now they're not listening anymore. I want to keep that person in the room, in the place where they are safe enough, where they're present enough to be able to deal with this thing that we got to deal with.
Yeah.
Because I care about moving the needle, going back to me being a utilitarian. I think sometimes that could be interpreted as being amicable. That could be interpreted as, going along to get along. That could be interpreted as a lot of things. And don't get me wrong, I do believe there is a point where it is that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I want people to understand that part of it. Sometimes I can see somebody be like, nah, bro. What I know now about myself is before I came to that conclusion, I would want to engage that person and understand what their strategy was, what they were trying to accomplish, why they chose this way versus that way. Before I would be like, you a coon. I just in a place in my life I could never do that anymore because I've been in enough rooms and experienced enough things that I realized that sometimes I thought I knew and I didn't. And so when I think about talking crazy about somebody that is, I'm gonna give you Colin Powell as an example for me.
Okay.
I remember Colin Powell, that was the first prominent black Republican.
Yeah.
Used to think about.
Right.
And I used to be like, man, this kid.
In today's mindset of what a Republican is, absolutely. I don't even think it today, but yeah, you know what I mean? Because Martin Luther King was a Republican.
Right, but I don't even think Colin Powell would be considered a Republican today. You know, I hope he wouldn't. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Especially his last years of his life.
Absolutely.
You understand? But I always said to myself that if I met Colin Powell later in life, when I did more, when I accomplished more, I would apologize. Because I'm so shameful for the things that I said about that man, thought about that man, even though I know he never heard of. Because I think to myself, this person rose to the level of Joint Chiefs of Staff. That significant position, having that influence in there, however subtle it might have been.
Yeah.
Even if it's no more than people getting comfortable with the optics.
Well, I mean, wasn't he defense secretary at one point as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and defense secretary. We're talking about, when you talk about power,
yeah,
we're talking about a person who has outsized influence of the greatest military force in the history of humanity.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And that person was one to keep people living. And he did that with all of the circumstances surrounding him in the old military.
Right.
Okay, not this one.
Not this one. Yeah.
In that one. And I think about that because when I actually get angry about racism or discrimination or any of those types of things, it's not even really about me that really hurts me, that makes me feel pain. The thing that actually pisses me off the most is that I'm experiencing the most vanilla version of it. That this is the easiest it's ever been.
Absolute.
You understand? Absolutely. So my father, my grandfather, what was they? Oh my God, what was they? I'm folding up.
Right.
I'm complaining.
Yep.
I'm crying. I'm whining. I'm over here. This is the easiest version. So when I think about the version that man had to go through, what kind of audacity do I have to call you a coon when you endured that, or to do this? And since then, we've had a Black female Secretary of State. Since then, he broke the seal on a lot of that stuff. You understand? So I've changed because I've experienced enough. Because once you do enough work and you get on the other side of the experience where now you've done enough that you've earned the honor, you've done enough to earn the honor of being a leader. It's exactly what a lot of people who aren't start to evaluate you and develop opinions about you without having accomplished what you've accomplished or contributed what you've contributed. And it takes a lot of audacity to do that.
Man, listen. So you said a whole bunch of things in there. I want to maybe go back a little bit. One of the things you mentioned was the time that you don't have for people complaining. Right.
And
Karen Hunter is one of my favorite radio hosts on Urban View Radio, and she always says, "I don't want your complaints. I don't want your anger. I want your action."
hello.
Listen, I don't want any of that other stuff. I want your manifestation. Like, what are you gonna do? And then Joe Madison always ends his show, or rest in peace, Joe Madison. But he always ended his show by saying, "What are you gonna do about it?" Like, we can complain until we blow in the face, but what are you gonna do about it?
Azor burns, passion builds.
Listen,
I understand your anger, but it burns things down.
yeah,
It gets you on the back and forth. Passion builds things. It's still drawing from the same energy. It's still drawing from a need and a desire and a burning inside you to do something, produce something, but it's not. And then it's forming them and driving them to something that people can be a part of versus a thing that separates people or tears them down.
for sure. So one of the other things you mentioned was just like when you do get angry, or when you are passionate, whether permanent or temporary, in some of those moments, you want people to feel your emotion. And I think that's really, really important to understand kind of the nuances behind wanting someone else to feel what you feel. And particularly in a space where someone has not shared the same experience. Like, it's really different for me to talk to you and say, "Hey, I just went through this, and I know that you've been through this as well. I want you to feel what I feel." That's one thing, right? But it's another thing to go in front of, that I'm just going to use, because I've talked to Jeff about this before, Jeff Griffin, Chamber of Commerce, talking to him about experiences that Black men have had, outside of his engagement with Black men. And he can't feel that because it's not his experience. So number one, it's important to understand the nuances behind that. But number two, even if someone did feel what you felt, we saw this after the George Floyd march. There was a whole bunch of people emotionally enraged over what happened with George Floyd. That was temporary.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Your experiences are permanent.
Yes.
Someone else feeling what you feel is temporary. What's your advice, or what's your strategy to move past the temporary grief, the temporary emotion, to get to permanent solutions?
And I want to say now more than ever, that's true of Black people too.
Absolutely.
It used to be if you were Black, you had a shared experience.
Yeah. Not necessarily.
You were heading out somebody and like all that pain that was just transferred, you knew. It's like, as a matter of fact, when I moved here, I used to call it the Black phone. People would see a Black person, they'd be like, "Hey, do you know so-and-so?" Why? Would I know this person? Where did that even come from? Because they Black.
I mean, we still get that.
But here's the thing though, like, but it was way more then. Now, like, people can believe that there's a Black person. I don't know. But at the time, they assumed that. And quite honestly, I probably did know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because there was a different level of solidarity there. But now I could be talking to like a 17-year-old Black teenager, young man, and I could be talking about discrimination or racism. They're like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And it caught me off guard when I first experienced it. And I used to try to be like, "Nah, you know what I'm talking about." come on, man, you don't know that. And I almost frustrated to where the point where I had to say, like, it's not, why would I project this onto this person? And that's not your experience that you have. That's not your experience. So I think even within Black people, whatever group, there's people now who don't have that set of experiences. So their anger is temporary as well. Because again, they don't feel this with any level of consistency. When George Floyd happened, you saw it from all types of people, all types of races being like, hold on, what's this?
Right.
And then people who had a little bit more life in them were like, what you mean? This is a Tuesday.
Yeah.
This happened all the time. This ain't nothing.
All the time.
This happened all the time. They're like, nah, this ain't cool. What you mean? This happened all the time. Yeah, this happens all the time. And people couldn't believe it. And what made that different is that the world stopped partly because of COVID. And so we were having a universal experience, which is very, very, very rare. That everybody was experiencing the same thing. Everybody was experiencing this kind of social unrest and this outrage. And because it was so blatant, it was one of those things that there was no grave for you to hide in. And then people were experiencing COVID at the same time, where they had to stay still and watch it. They couldn't distract themselves. It couldn't spin itself into a new news cycle. And that is what created kind of that phenomenon where people had to participate. So when people get into those temporary feelings, what I always try to get people to understand is, which is why I don't put as much stock in the sensational nature of all of these conversations, because that's not what's going to become your day to day. You can't sustain that. It's too much for you, which is why I've seen so many leaders, particularly in the Black community, come and go, come and go, come and go. You come, you do the work, you overextend yourself, you burn out, people drain you dry, they use you up, and then they get somebody else. The people who stay consistent are the people who use those people. They're always around. They just need somebody else to use. But those people who are doing that additional work, they rarely last, because a lot of times, we ask the most of us that do the most. And we just keep asking and asking and asking and asking without asking ourselves, what am I contributing? So the first thing for me is just developing some self-awareness and just being honest about yourself. What contributions are you making for the community that you expect? I can't expect you to do more than what you care about.
That part.
That's not for me to do for you. What I'm saying is, well, you have an expectation that you walk into a place and you get treated with a certain level of respect, not because that person wants to or doesn't, but because they have to. That's policy. You need to focus on that.
Yeah, for sure.
If you want people to come in
And if
and treat
you want to, I would.
right, and if you want somebody to treat you one way or another because they like you or not, that's community. You need to go establish a relationship.
For sure.
If you want people to deal with you a certain way because you have the resources to influence that, you better go get the bag. So we can have different methodologies, but for the community you want, you better go get that thing. I happen to be into all of those things to some degree. The last thing I want is my experience to be based on what somebody else feels like it should be in that particular moment. That can't be it. So I want policy that gives me a basic experience that I can expect that's equivalent to us as a country, because this is a communal type of thing.
For sure.
I want to have the resources to be able to invest in the things that I care about, so that I don't need somebody else to see the value in what I'm doing for it to come to life, because I can see the value in it. So I have to go acquire resources. And it's important for me to have relationships, because those fill in the gaps. The relationships are really what determine my experience. When I go into this coffee shop, how do these people treat me? How do they make me feel? But also, do I have a relationship to be able to call and engage with that person that can influence these politics? And do I have the relationship to be engaged and develop trust and relationship with this person who can help me acquire these resources?
Yeah.
I'm not, all of it's, a function for me. What you will find is a lot of people kind of pick one. They either want to achieve enough that they're beyond their experience. They either want a policy that fixes it all, which you'll never have.
Yeah.
Or, they want people to like them so bad that they won't hurt them. And I think that's where people get whatever. I think having a healthy balance of all of that is really challenging.
Yeah, for sure it is. For sure it is. One other thing that you mentioned before was you used the word audacity, and I want to kind of relate this to one of the people that I look up to, which is President Barack Obama.
Yeah.
He uses the term a lot, audacity to hope.
Yeah, buddy.
And sometimes when we are not in the room, sometimes when we don't have the power or the influence over something that we feel we should have, as Black folks, we need to continue to remain hopeful. how do you, particularly and now I'm going political for you, particularly now, the Black community is really hurting over the second Trump election. The communities of color, really, in general, not just Black folks, but all people of color are really hurting over the second term. How do we remain hopeful in this moment?
Okay. So hope takes courage. So I think you got to have the courage of hope, right? Because really, when we talk about hope, I don't even so much care for the word hope.
Okay.
Because hope is not a strategy. I believe in faith. I believe in belief. I think faith and belief are valuable, right? You have faith that the work you're going to do is going to generate the results, which lends to the consistency of you doing that work, even when you're not initially getting the results. I think believing in yourself and your abilities and other people and all those other type of things are valuable. Believing in this, in righteousness, all those types of things. I think belief and faith are useful. I think hope is not. Hope is not a strategy.
But you don't think you can? Do you believe you can have faith and belief without hope?
Yeah, I do. I think for me, like again, even when we talk about hope, hope for me is interchangeable with wish.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I wish this would happen. I wish we would have done that. That's not particularly useful for me.
Sure.
For me, it's about what I intend to make happen. And I need faith and belief to propel me and to motivate me to believe that I could. Again, if you took people, when I go talk to young people, they'll just see me have a chain or something like that. They'll be like, "Are you rich?" And I'll be like, "No," but the 8-year-old me would think I was.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm not. I don't know what this person said. I know I blew away what my circumstances were.
Yeah.
And as I said in Culture Code, where we own a hunting farm that we converted into a retreat space or 10 acres in the middle of a farm or whatever. Like, how do you put that together? This kid from the inner city of the hood to be able to get to this particular situation. Like, you gotta have a lot of faith and belief that you're supposed to be where you at, that you deserve to be in this room, that you could be audacious enough to want this or want that or all those other type of things. But like all the people that I know that are wishing and hoping for stuff are still wishing and hoping for stuff.
Well, yeah, but I think those are people that only wish, people that stop at the wish, that only stop at the hope. Yeah, I think those are the people maybe you're talking about. For me, I think it starts with the hope. In my mind, it starts with that internal conversation to say, "Man, I wish we had this," and then it moves into, I have the belief and the faith that I can create this if no one else.
I think realistically, that is what actually happened because of what the circumstance. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a certain point where, like,
And that's what I mean by, like, right now in this moment, we have to have the hope. Yeah, we're gonna get past this. And so then, how do we take the hope that we're gonna get?
So I think this is the difference in what's successful. I do believe like hope is valuable in those moments.
Yes.
This goes back to not above it, beyond it. I'm not above that concept. Get it, felt it, all those other type of things. I think we're beyond it, and we have to transition beyond it.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like Dr. King had a dream. Cool, get it. That's the spot what that was in. I'm not supposed to still have that dream. I'm supposed to have goals and plans and strategies and all those other type of things. Now that was afforded to me by somebody having the audacity to have that dream,
Right.
and communicate. But we there. You know what I mean? It's one of those types of things for sure. So it's less like I don't want to make one against the other. And for me, it's more of a timeline type situation. Like I think at one point in time, hope was all that you had, because how could you possibly believe you were going to get out of this situation? I mean, come on. All the odds were against you or whatever. I'm saying you got to update your iOS.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's my challenge with a lot of folks, is that they don't update their iOS. I call it the invisible fence syndrome. Like, let's say you have a dog and they run to the sidewalk and they get shot because there's an invisible fence. They got the shock up. They do it again. They do it again. They do it again. Over years, they do it, trying to get to the other side of that sidewalk. And they get shocked so much that they just stop doing it. Okay. Now that young dog is an old dog. The old dog don't try to even make it towards the thing anymore. Don't even go close, because it's had enough evidence that it ain't gonna happen. They're not gonna get through it. And then the owners move. That dog goes to the kids. The kids move to another house. Ain't no fence. They get another puppy. The puppy wants to run to the sidewalk. The puppy goes running for the sidewalk. The older dog loves that puppy, wants to take care of that puppy, wants to protect that puppy. What's that older dog going to do?
Stop the dog from going to the fence.
They're going to stop it from going to the fence. It ain't there no more, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't know that, though. But based on your experiences, there's something there that's going to hurt you if you go over there. That puppy like, nah, I can't see nothing. I'm going to go right over there. That's the kind of the cruel circle of love and care, is that what that person is basing that fear off of is legitimate, but not for me, you know? And the only way that I could attest that is if I go over there and I try to see what's going on. And a lot of times we keep all of our methods, we keep all of our strategies, we keep all of our stuff here because this is an experience of what is going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, so some people go to the tried and true things that have, and now even some of our tactics that we use are traditions more than their tactics.
Yeah, for sure.
We're gonna have a soup drive at the diner and we're gonna do whatever, and we're gonna hand out flyers and blah blah. If your Instagram ain't popping, it's a wrap.
Yeah. Right.
I get this was the thing.
Yep.
This ain't the thing. We gotta move past that. That's more where I'm at with it. You know what I'm saying? So it's not about telling people not to hope. It's saying it's fortifying your mind with some conviction. I'll tell you, the day after the election, I live above our wine bar downtown, Queen City Bakery. My man Mitch owns it. We've been friends for 30 years. So I go down there every day, and it just feels good to me. I went down there the day after, and I saw people sitting at the table, like people were really mourning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People was holding hands. Then it was, you know what I mean? People was looking shell-shocked. And a person said to me, they said, Vaney, how are you holding up? How are you doing? And my response was, I'm holding a croissant. Mm-hmm. They're like, what? I said, I'm holding a croissant. I'm in the coffee shop, which I live above, talking to people that I care about, holding a croissant.
Right. Yeah.
The last thing I want to hear from somebody holding a croissant, is complaining. Like, what kind of place in your life? I come from a situation where if I ate was in question. Okay? Not what if I ate was in question. Where I didn't have access to healthy relationships in some instances, or sunlight in instances, or vegetables in some instances. We talking about, I learned how to eat at a bodega. You know, my taste buds is preservatives. You know, so to be able to be in this loft that many white people in this community couldn't live in or couldn't afford, because they don't know the people to get it, or they don't have the resources to do it. I could come down, and almost everything that I walk into, somebody that I rock with, that I could call on the phone, owns that. And they take care of me in a different type of way. So for me ever to be in a situation where I can't appreciate all of that, for me is disrespectful for people who are not having my experience.
For sure.
Because I'm not having the quintessential Black experience. I'm having the Vaney experience. So for me, when I woke up the next day, I woke up with the conviction to do what I did the day before. I've been on this path. I have no assumptions whatsoever that what we do every 4 years in that moment, though I think it is valuable, though I think it is important, and I think people need to participate as citizens and responsible participants in this community, I'm under no illusions that that's going to change my circumstance. It has never proven to. What has changed my circumstances is the people who are willing to do that day in and day out work, whether they are custodial workers, whether they are a mechanic, whether they are a teacher, whether they are a doctor, whether they whatever. I learned as much from the Cosby Show as I did anything else in my life. How to look like myself.
For sure.
How to feel good about myself. Having an expectation of educating myself. Knowing that Black people can be professionals and have a nuclear family and all of those other type of things. So for me, it's about saying, when you feel in these moments like we lost, I think that's a moment to appreciate that there's a much larger game at stake, and that it's less fruitful to try to fix this country because it's working the way it was intended to.
Yeah, well, that part for certain.
You know what I'm saying? So for me, it's more important to say, I'm doing to work to try to provide a better way. And in order for you to motivate people who are, quote unquote, on the ups to do something different, it's only because it could take them higher.
Sure.
Or they're not going to lose. Otherwise, they're naturally incentivized to challenge what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think that's just natural for human beings, period.
100%.
But so one of the things that you mentioned, I mean, like, to use the thing, like, I'm holding a croissant. Everybody in there was probably holding a croissant. Everybody in there was probably drinking a coffee. And so while I get that, there has to be a space for emotional development through those moments. So my question to you would be, what was said to validate their emotions in return? Because that was the Bonnie experience, but what about the Susie experience? Whoever asked you the question.
For sure. And I'll be honest with you. To me, for people like that, because some people were more. That's like being at a funeral. I don't know what you want me to say. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those things where it's like when you're at a funeral, somebody coming to you, they're like, "How you doing, baby? How you think I'm doing?"
Right. Sure.
When people are in that moment, there's not a whole lot for me to offer you outside of perspective. I wasn't offering to console folks. That's not a role that I play a lot, because that's not necessarily what I am predisposed to do. I was offering a perspective,
Sure.
to those folks to be able to say,
Do you think they were ready for that?
that's if you value that, that can be a concern, because you can't know.
Okay.
I can't know.
And I guess that's kind of my point, is like for emotional for emotions to be able to develop through some of those situations, particularly in a situation like this that was already traumatic, and now we're reliving that same trauma again.
Yeah.
Then the emotion hits differently for people, and I just think that they need space.
Well, I thought what I gave them was valuable, because, like I said, I know, not that it wasn't there. If I don't know what they need, this is what I have to offer.
Sure.
You might need space from that person to that person. That's not what I have to give you, because that's not what I believe is valuable right now. What I think is valuable right now is perspective, because you ain't here crying knowing that nothing is going to instantly change. It takes you a year for you to be able to open and roll for insurance again. Stuff just don't happen on magic. If you're not flipping switches, what you could do in that year before he could even cook up whatever he want to cook up, the things you could do if you want to. But here's what I tell you for sure. I don't think we got a day to waste.
Sure.
I don't think we could just be sitting up here with that. Do you get to? Sure. Is that going to advance your circumstance? No. And I think that logic in many ways is why the tradition of it is saying, well, you get, a lot of times people will fight for their right to feel something, then fight to feel right. You know what I mean? You have a right to be sad. You have a right to sit here and do whatever. You have a right to do all of these other type of things. Do you want to, though? And is it going to advance your circumstance? So the part that I play in many people's life, and it's not always a comfortable position for me, is to be able to say, I get it. You get to be, but get up.
Yeah.
Because, and there's nothing I don't say to myself, but in the part of the way that I do, and the reason why I offered that I'm holding a croissant is because I wanted to give them an insight into how I do it. I don't just want to say, feel better. I want to tell you how I do it. The way I do it is I appreciate how much I've advanced my life. I do it by appreciating how good my life is right now. And that is what keeps me from needing hope. That gives me faith and belief, because how far my life has advanced, because of how good I have it, because of what my experience is. Of course, I believe that you can improve your experience. For sure. I improve mine. Of course, I believe that you can influence change. I do. And so I'm not saying it just as an adage or just like, it'll be okay. Nah, I'm telling you, we'll make it okay if you get up and let's go do what we got to do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying people don't need that or don't deserve that. I'm saying that's not the role that I play. The role that I play is trying to give perspective in terms of what I do to challenge that. And I think I'm especially good at that. And so that's what I offer to folks, because as I observe folks, the people that I observe that take all the moments that they can to feel, and that take all the moments that they can to recover, that take all the moments that they can, are naturally less impactful, because the greatest ability is availability. Don't mean nothing if you don't show up. So for me, it's like, if a bad thing happens and you down for a week, you're just not as valuable to the outcome.
Yeah. That's just the reality, at least for a week.
At least for a week. And a lot can happen in a week.
For sure. For sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. All right, so I wanna get into this. There's gonna be a very poignant question here for you.
Yeah.
We know that Vaney is a leader,
Yeah.
but is Vaney a leader for the community, or is Vaney a leader for the Black community? And what's the difference?
Yeah, I'm a leader for the community.
Okay.
Because I think what gets people kind of twisted up is,
Hang on, before you answer that, I want to preface maybe your answer just a little bit, and the reason I'm asking this question is because both of us at times, many a times, receive backlash from Black folks saying that we are either not doing enough or that we're doing too much. Most exclusively is here. Right. So I really want to maybe put up a conversation around that. That's the reason I'm asking that.
Nah, I appreciate that. And so, like, I'm a leader for the community because number one, I love humans, people, and I think it's just incredibly disingenuous and naive to a criminal degree to have an expectation that somebody that you're not being considerate of considering you. I think it's silly. So I think at any point in time where you're not thinking about how I play into this, why would I care about what you got going on? I'm just not likely to. The other thing is like, I think people take things to extremes. I think there's some people who want to be black. That's what they want. And I think there's some people who feel the pain of being black and they want to be something else. And that's what they want to do. For me, I don't just want to be black. For sure. You know what I'm saying? I'm black. I earned this experience. You know what I mean? Like, and so a lot of people, they want to, and this is what, for the greater community, it's hard for them to keep talking about race or doing all those other type of things. They're like, can we get over it? And it's like, well, first, it worked against us. Then, so you hurt us because of it. And when I say you, I mean whoever. Yeah. I'm not saying it. You hurt us in general. Yeah. You hurt us because of it. Then you ignored us because of it. And now we're at the point where we're supposed to be having this conversation. You want to skip it and clear the slate. That's what is hard for people to get over. It's like you want to go straight from us being under the weight of it to just not talking about it no more. Let's just not even talk about race no more. Hold on.
Right.
People say to you all the time, why does everything have to be about race? Because it always has. What evidence do I have that it doesn't have anything to do with race? Are you kidding me? It's in the, we still run this country over 250-year-old document.
Right.
Which is nuts.
Yep.
Okay. 250-year-old document. And in those documents, it establishes that equity was never the goal. Even though there's fluffy language, even when people talked about equity, they were talking about equity of full humans.
Right. Well, they were talking about equity of property.
Yeah.
Which at the time, black folks were considered to be
100%.
So yeah.
And so we did not rise him. So yeah. So people get confused by the language. When you hear equality in that language, that was equality of people, not property.
Right.
So that wasn't the expectation, which is why I say if the country is working the way it's intended to, because we're still operating off of that document from that era. And one thing I'll say for Thomas Jefferson, I don't, obviously you don't always want to go through the forefathers for a lot of reasons, but he was a strong philosopher, and he said the living should not be governed by the dead, that we should refresh the Constitution every 20 years. Why would I be under the thumb of whatever? And I think the same is true of when we address these types of issues. And so when we're trying to do something new, when we're trying to establish something better, it's hard to cure unfairness with fairness, right? It is. It's hard to say, this is unfair, we're going to write this, but we're not going to harm you, person who had nothing to do with this.
Sure.
And so when people are casual about that, when they're casual about saying, no, we're going to focus on this ain't got nothing to do with you, to that individual, it does. Everybody the main character in their story.
Sure.
Anytime you get in the habit of telling somebody it's not about them, they're going to make it about them. Anytime you try to tell somebody, we care about these people, but you less. People ask us all the time to do D'ing and when we tell them, we do it in a very different way. We do it by way of culture. So we may not do it in a way that you might expect, and it's important that you understand that. Because for us, we address it with culture. Because as we say, if a pie doesn't taste good, will it taste better if you slice it?
Tastes the same.
It tastes the same. So if you're in an environment where people don't see the value and compassion, love, care, trust, when they're not secure enough to get out of their own feelings, when they're not aware enough to be able to see where they make mistakes, when they're not considerate enough to see how things might be impacting you, you can put in whatever policy you want, you can put in whatever training you want, whatever rules you want, whatever you want. The results are going to be the same because the person hasn't changed. And ultimately, it's the person making the decisions, no matter what the rules are, no matter what the policy is. You know what I mean? How long has it been illegal to do certain things that people do every day?
Yeah.
That's not what it is. So, if you don't address the thing, so we live in a community where we're not saying that we want health, we want happiness, we want security as a whole, what do you think you're gonna get it specifically, right? As a sub community, it's just not realistic. And the other thing is, it's like I'm not going to disrespect the other people, not even just white people. Obviously, it gets into that, but the white people, the Hispanic people, the gay people, the these people, those people that have impacted me, that have taught me, that have developed me, that have contributed to the human that I am. You all get to benefit from that because you all contributed to that. You know what I mean? That person that was watching Bill Cosby still might have been watching Bill Nye the Science Guy or blah, 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 blah. Or when they were watching Rita and Rainbow, they not thinking about the white producer or the Jewish producer that went all over the world. They tried to raise money to do that and fought for it and did all those other type of things. You know what I mean? Like that person contributed to that being on the air too. Somebody had the green like that. Somebody who didn't need the green like that had the green like that.
For sure. Yep.
You know what I mean? Somebody who didn't have to care about your circumstance. Back in the day, if you loved the person of color, if you wanted to spend time with them, you were really legitimately likely to experience the same or similar things that they were.
For sure.
So
That's an accomplice.
you could lose your life.
Yep.
You could lose your standing. You could lose your whatever. The difference between those two people is I had to wear this reality. There was no escaping it.
Yep.
You could have lied. You could have hid it. You could have tucked in your love for this person. You could have said you don't. But those people went and signed up for it. They said, look, I'm going to take them L's, which you don't have to.
For sure.
I could be in the closet.
Yep.
I don't have to. But they did. I'm not about to disrespect nobody like that by saying your kids shouldn't benefit from you making those decisions. That the community you helped develop shouldn't benefit from it. Come on, man. I just have a hard time doing that. And before I'm a black man, I'm a man. I'm a man. You're going to deal with me like a man. I don't care what color, race, creed, whatever. You're going to deal with me a certain way. You know what I mean? God created man. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Step one.
Yeah.
Step one. So that's where I start. Now, my experience is obviously colored by that, but I'm not just that.
Yeah. So then let me ask you this then. In 2024, do you believe in equity?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think sometimes what people get twisted with equity is like there's a difference between, equity of opportunities versus equity outcomes. I think that's a big thing. I think there's an illusion of equity that we all get it the same way at the same time. That's just not a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So the notion of equity, or really the true definition of equity, is that one group will climb while another group either remains still or potentially may lose something of value to them. And that's really, in my mind, particularly when you talk about policies, politics, those type things, that's what's holding us as a community back, is that we don't have a true sense of what equity is. We don't know how to build equity. Sometimes we don't even know the definition of the 100% of the term equity, but that's us. The folks who actually have the power, which most of the time don't look like us, don't share the same experiences as us, they have something to potentially lose. So how do you have that conversation with those folks when you talk about, or do you have that conversation with,
I do all the time.
when you talk about the culture that you're building?
That for me is the conversation, is to be able to say, maybe you don't care that those people are educated like you. Maybe you don't care that they have access to books or access to resources, or access to whatever. Maybe you don't care about that. Like, I don't care if you care. This is not what I'm interested in. My thing is, do the math.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't give that person that 50-cent amoxicillin pill. And now that person gets pneumonia. Which one costs you more?
Yep.
That one. Okay. You put this person in prison for marijuana that is a victimless crime, that the use of the drug does far less damage, virtually no damage to that person as comparison to it being illegal. Most things that happen to a person in terms of marijuana that ruins their life, that takes their life, all those other types of things, is not using it. It is the buying and selling of it.
Right. For sure.
So the actual illicit nature of it is what makes it dangerous. Logic.
Yeah.
To do the math. I don't need you to care. I need you to make it make sense. Okay, cool. That kid over there, they don't have a program. You don't care if they play football or whatever. Great. You don't have to be in their life. But when you're not in their life, it's more likely they're gonna be in your garage. So
Yeah.
how you gonna do that?
Absolutely.
That's what I'm on. I don't need you to care. Don't care if you care. I would love for you to care. I would want for you to care, but I don't care if you care. I don't need you to care. Like, I'm way past that. That's my thing. I'm way, 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 way past that, because I have so much evidence that when a person is insecure, and many, many, many people are, they're going to hyper focus on themselves.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So until you could put a person in an environment where they are secure, where they are happy, they are confident, only then can that person release the fear of not having enough and make themselves available to whether or not that person has enough.
Right.
But if I feel like I'm starving, if I feel like I'm being shorted, if I feel like I'm being cheated, and you're asking me to take my current resources and put them over there with people I don't have a relationship with, that I don't know, and I think might have a problem with me, how likely am I to do that?
Right. Absolutely.
I'm just not.
For sure. Yeah. I think that's a really, really important conversation to have. I'm glad you kind of opened that up a little bit, because oftentimes when I run into, and I would imagine you run into it as well, is that folks think that you and I do very similar work, we do same work. We're both working on culture in our own perspective. You know what I mean? I'm working on Black folks, the culture of Black folks, and you're working on culture in organizations very, very, very openly and explicitly. And so again, like, talking about those types of differences, I think help folks understand that again, there's different types of leaders that we're doing different types of work, but we're having the same type of impact on growth directly in our community. And so I want to close it by giving you some space to talk about that exact growth with the LLT program, things that you're doing at Think 3D, some of the other programs, and how you've been able to develop people using that same model and that same mindset, and also transferring that mindset into some of the leaders of tomorrow.
Yeah. I've always been interested in influence, and one of the things I think there's always been an opportunity for people of color, especially, is this appreciating this. Power lies where people think it lies. If you think it lies with you, it does. If you think it lies with them, it does. And that's why I say stay away from that. Because when you're on that they stuff, it puts power over there instead of where it's at, which is with you. And so for me, when we talk about the idea of influence in developing leadership, that's really what we're trying to do. Like, if you look at the definition of control, the first part of the definition of control is the power to influence, because you can't control anything outside of yourself. Everything else you can influence. People think they might control something, but you can influence it. And that is one of the true universal qualities, is that you can become influential, which is why some of the most impactful people held no actual role that was universally appreciated,
Right.
or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't, for the so-and-so Idaho don't care, Farrakhan is a minister.
Right.
They don't care. The king is a reverend.
You don't say Otto, South Dakota.
So they don't care about none of that. But those people are so influential that they can impact these types of things. So for me, it's about teaching people the skill of influence. And my personal mission statement is to teach people how to love, starting with themselves. And what I just realized is that I want to be loved. And I found that in order for me to be loved, I needed people around me to love themselves. Because people who didn't love themselves, people who were insecure, people who were small-minded, anxious, or fearful, had an issue with it. Because I got big ideas, and I got personality, and I got drive, and I got all of those types of things. And when I was around those kinds of people, I didn't have a great experience, and they saw me as being the issue. But when I helped folks tap into their courage, to their confidence, to their own belief, to their own self-love, I realized it made it easier for them to love me and be considerate of me. So that's really what my overall goal is. And part of the way that we do that from a tactical perspective is teaching true, genuine leadership. And the first thing that we all have to do is lead ourselves. So with our Leaders of Tomorrow program that we've been doing since 2018, over 750 folks through that program, helping develop leaders to be able to go do what needs to be done, because I'm not going to do it all, and I don't want y'all coming to me for everything. That's why we develop more leaders, so we can multiply that ability. And so that when somebody comes to this community and they want to know where they should work, I could point at any business and they go to a place that's healthy and safe. Who knows who's there, whatever their demographic is. When they go to the polls, I want them to be able to choose between the best and the best versus the lesser of two evils, no matter what the demographics are. So if we take these people, Republican, Democrat, gay, straight, this, that, whatever it is, and we help develop mindful, thoughtful, considerate leaders that care about their own health, thus they make themselves available to care about the health of others. Now we'll have leaders in these positions that are making good decisions for the community versus advantageous decisions for their race, for their financial class, for their blah, 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 blah. It's a definition of rising tide lifts all boats. So leaders of tomorrow, Think 3D, we're doing that within organizations. So we're kind of burning the wick from both ends. So schools, prisons, all of those types of things. We're working on those individuals. And then we're working with businesses on their leadership skills. So we kind of meet in the middle, and everywhere you go, you find a leader. That's what we're looking for. The other piece of it is the biggest initiative that we have going right now that I'll leave off on is Culture Cove, which is our 10-acre retreat space that we purchased and renovated for the purpose of doing retreats. Now we'll do commercial team leadership retreats and that type of thing, but our goal is to really get to the point where we can use this as a tool to really allow leaders to be safe. There's not a whole lot of safe spaces for leaders. You and I both know that no matter what your ideology is, no matter what you believe, people are gonna come from regardless. That's just how it is. And so when people are coming for you, it makes it hard for you to acknowledge when you're hurting, when you're in pain, when you don't know, when you're scared. So we want to create those environments where people can come together, commune, create some real connection, and strengthen themselves to get back into the fight. So we have that going as well. People can check out all of this stuff at letsd3d.com, theculturecove.com, all of our socials at Think 3D Solutions. And they could get into what it is that we do, take what is useful for you, leave what isn't.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad you said that last piece. Take what's useful, leave what isn't. Because the experience that you are providing to people is their experience. Is their experience. So, Vaney, I appreciate you, man. There's a couple things that I typically would ask at the end. We kind of ran out of time, so we might have to
Part two?
do a part 2 for sure, or just maybe a recurring series. You know,
For sure.
So I like it. Yeah. So appreciate you, Vaney. Appreciate y'all for listening to Roots and Revenue, and we'll catch y'all next time.